Good evening, everyone. For the discussion board assignment this week, we have been tasked with discussing another of the 7 core values identified by the National League for Nursing in 2010 as part of their core competencies model. This week, we are to discuss the concept of holism and how that concept relates to the field of nursing. While there are a variety of definitions for holistic nursing available, and those depend heavily on whether or not whether the person or group defining the term has a leaning towards conventional medicine or alternative forms of treatment, for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to focus more on the allopathically aligned idea that holistic treatment is treatment that focuses on the person as a whole instead of simply their physical ailment. That is basically to say a person who has been shot is more than just the bullet wound. When discussing holistic nursing, we must first break down what the idea of the whole person actually means. In this context, the idea of a person as a whole is a reference to the interconnectedness of the mind, body, and the experience. The prevailing ideology among nursing educators and scholars with regard to this topic is that the thoughts, emotions, and experiences of an individual are similarly as crucial to that individual's healing as are the treatment and repair of their physical malady. In a sense, this idea of holistic practice is based just as much off the writings as philosophers like René Descartes, who coined the phrase, "I think, therefore I am," as it is the quantitative research into healing trends that are related to intangible patient qualities. This idea of holism has its foundations tied all the way back to the lady with the lamp herself, Miss Florence Nightingale. In 1859, she had a book titled Notes on Nursing, What It Is and What It Is Not. Nightingale stated this about holism. It is often thought that medicine is the curative process. It is no such thing. Surgery removes the bullet out of the limb, which is an obstruction to cure, but nature heals the wound. So it is with medicine. Medicine, so far as we know, assists nature to remove the obstruction, but does nothing more. And what nursing has to do in either case is to put the patient in the best condition for nature to act upon them. Much like the philosophers of old, Nightingale remains purposefully vague with her statements on holistic nursing as a specific practice and focuses more on the idea that healing can, and often is, a fluid and varied process that may affect one differently than the next. Nightingale herself was at the forefront of scientific-based changes in care practice by focusing on an evidence-based approach to methodologies of care, so it's no surprise that she would sort of future-proof her most fundamental ideologies with the ability to grow and adapt alongside medical science. While Nightingale may seem equal parts to exist only in a distant, medically barbaric past, and somehow to also still be as relevant and poignant to our practices today as ever, it's important to understand that her use of evidence-based practice and the scientific method is exactly what creates this illusion. Remember, it was only in 1847 that Ignaz Semmelweis had his seminal breakthrough about the connection between post-mortem examination and deadly infections, and how proper hygiene might drastically decrease infection-related fatalities. It would be years before this practice was widely accepted in the medical world. For some reference, Nightingale and Semmelweis were only born 2 years apart. With a definition and some fundamental clarification out of the way, we may now move on to focus on the methods for applying the idea of holistic care in everyday practice. Various studies have been done to support the claim that increased stress and emotional duress have a quantifiably negative effect on wound healing. Many of these studies focus specifically on surgical wound healing and psychological stress and have found an obvious positive correlation between quicker healing times and lower reported stress levels, as well as better outcomes for those who had a more robust emotional support system. Similar studies support the same connection between chronic wound healing and hospital-related anxiety and depression. Some of the most effective way that these studies found to mitigate the psychological concerns are primarily nursing-based actions. Interventions such as pain control, odor reduction, and the offering of information about a patient's condition were found to have a significant reductive effect on reported stress levels. Concerns of pain, body image, and embarrassment are regularly identified as key contributors to psychological concerns that may negatively impact or prolong a patient's hospital stay. While certain studies may attribute various physical factors of emotional states, such as cortisol levels in the body, to poor care outcomes, the resulting philosophy is effectively the same. To heal the body, we must also heal the mind. While there is much more discussion that could be had about the impact of the intangible on the tangible with relation to medical treatment and outcomes, I feel that this discussion has offered at least a solid foundation on which one may base their studies on this topic. Ultimately, the murky relationship between pseudoscientific practices and conventional medicine has seemingly created a very dangerous path for scam artists and charlatans to worm their way into health-related fields under the guise of homeopathy and complementary treatment. There is, however, a definitive, observable, and direct relationship between the emotions and experiences of a patient and their medical outcomes. Though the philosophy of holism has its roots in the creation of modern nursing, true quantitative scientific study into this topic has only begun relatively recently, and much more research is left to do about the mind-body connection and how that connection impacts one's physical well-being both in and out of the hospital. I think that's pretty much going to sum up everything I wanted to touch base on, so I hope this was interesting to some folks. It was definitely interesting to read about. Have a good rest of your week, guys.